If someone had told me she'd notice my trembling water glass before I did, I would have bristled. It began with a mistake. Nothing dramatic. Not the kind you blueprint a life around or expect to shift anything at all. Just a small, deceptively harmless misstep. A misplaced look, the wrong table, a name she didn't recognize, and a woman she would never forget. Rain traced the cafe windows in silver lines as Maya slipped inside, heart pounding. She was late, only 5 minutes, but still. Tessa had practically dragged her into this blind date, promising the woman was kind, smart, cute, an absolute catch. Maya had said no at first. She didn't do blind dates. Didn't do dating really. She was too busy holding together the pieces of her chaotic, just barely functioning life. Between her 2 part-time jobs, her sister's tuition, and her landlord breathing down her neck, romance wasn't just a luxury. It was a joke. But still, here she was, breathless, umbrella dripping, scanning the room for someone she didn't know how to recognize. All Tessa had said was, "She'll be at the table near the window, wearing black." Maya's eyes landed on the only woman who matched the description. Sitting alone at a table in the far corner, dressed in an elegant black blouse, black trousers, raven dark hair pulled back into a sleek twist, a single hand resting on a wine glass she hadn't yet touched. She looked intimidating and absolutely gorgeous. The kind of woman who looked like she didn't have to speak to be heard. The kind who didn't wait. The kind who didn't belong in a coffee shop. Maya hesitated, then walked toward her. "Hi," she said, trying to smile through the nerves. "I'm Maya." The woman raised her eyes slowly. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." They were sharp, pale, unreadable, but something flickered across her face. Then, something that looked a lot like surprise. "Maya," she repeated, voice smooth as silk. "You're early," Maya blinked. "Oh, sorry. I thought I was late." The woman smiled just barely. "Depends on who you're meeting." "Tessa set this up," Maya said, sliding into the seat across from her before she could think twice. "She said you'd be wearing black." The woman's expression didn't shift, but something in her eyes darkened like a secret unfolding. "Then I suppose you found me." There was a pause, a breath. Maya glanced down at the table. No menu, no coffee, just the untouched wine. Do you want to order something?" The woman tilted her head. "I'm not here for coffee." Maya frowned. "Okay." Another pause. The air between them grew heavier, but not in a bad way. In a way that made Maya's skin tingle. "So, Tessa said, you work in tech." The woman blinked, then smiled fully for the first time. "Yes," she said. "I suppose I do." "That's cool. I work in publishing, sort of freelance editing mostly, and waitressing." She laughed, trying to cut through the weirdness. "It's as glamorous as it sounds." The woman didn't laugh, but she leaned forward, arms folding delicately on the table. "And you agreed to this date because Tessa insisted pretty much. So, you're not looking for anything serious?" "I don't even know what I'm looking for." "Honest," the woman murmured. "I like that." Maya flushed. "What about you?" "I came out of curiosity," she said. "And now I think I'd like to stay." Maya's stomach flipped. That shouldn't have made her heart skip, but it did. Something about the way this woman looked at her, like she saw right through her defenses. Like she'd already decided she wanted something Maya wasn't sure she was ready to give. Made her feel both exposed and electrified. "You're not what I expected," Maya said. "Neither are you." Another pause. Maya fidgeted with her necklace. "So, what's your name?" The woman smiled again. "Celine." "Celine." Maya echoed. "Pretty." Celine studied her. "You don't know who I am, do you? Should I?" Celine leaned back, amused now. "No," she said. "It's better this way." Just then, a woman entered the cafe, looked around, then stopped. She marched toward a different table, one near the opposite window, where a woman in jeans and a red scarf was checking her phone. They greeted each other awkwardly. Maya froze. Her eyes widened. "Wait." Celine just looked at her calm, expectant. "I think I sat at the wrong table," Maya whispered. "Yes," Celine said. "You did. But why didn't you say anything?" Celine's smile deepened. "Because I didn't want you to leave." Maya's mouth parted, stunned. You let me believe you were my date. You sat down, Celine said softly. And I decided I wanted to know you. That's insane. Is it? Celine slid a sleek black card across the table. I have to go now, but I'd like to see you again. Maya stared at the card embossed gold. No phone number, just a name, Celine Arden. And beneath it, a single word. Arden Holdings. Maya's pulse spiked. Wait, are you? But Celine was already walking away. Everyone in the cafe turned slightly as she passed. Of course they did. She moved like a storm, like wealth, like power wrapped in perfume. Maya sat frozen, card in hand, heart racing. Celine Arden, the CEO, the billionaire, the woman whose face was on magazine covers and financial news articles. She hadn't been on a blind date. She just wanted Maya. And Maya had no idea what to do with that. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the business card still clutched in her hand like it might disappear if she let go. Celine Arden. The name buzzed through her like a static charge. The woman from the cafe wasn't just anyone. She was the Celine Arden, CEO of Arden Holdings. One of the youngest, richest, most ruthless women in the corporate world. The kind of person who made headlines when she changed hairstyles, let alone when she closed billion-dollar deals. Maya had seen her face before in magazines on news sites, but never up close. Never across a tiny table in a cafe where she'd sat by accident and stayed because she couldn't look away. Celine had known she wasn't the date, and still she'd stayed, too. Maya tossed and turned. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent. No texts, no calls, not from Celine, not from Tessa. Eventually, curiosity got the better of her. She typed Celine Arden into her search bar just to see it again, just to confirm that the woman with the silk voice and the ice blue eyes hadn't been a dream. She wasn't. There were photos, dozens at Gall, on stages, at boardrooms. She was always surrounded by power, wealth, men in suits twice her age looking terrified and obedient at the same time. And then Maya saw something else. A rumor. No confirmed relationships, no scandals, no past affairs the media could prove, just whispers, speculation. Celine Arden is notoriously private. Some say she's never been seen on a date. Some say she's not interested in relationships at all. Maya stared at the screen for a long time. Her heart wouldn't slow down. The next morning, she went to work like nothing had happened. Her shift at the cafe was hellishly long. 8 hours on her feet, taking orders, dodging rude customers, pretending she hadn't been halfway seduced by a billionaire the day before. She didn't even tell her friend Jules, who usually heard everything first. She couldn't. It felt too surreal, too fragile until 4:17 p.m. when a man in a dark suit entered the cafe, scanned the room, and walked straight to the counter. He didn't order anything. Maya Carter, he asked. Yes. He handed her an envelope. Miss Arden sends her regards. Then he turned and left just like that. No explanation, no reaction to the stunned looks from customers around them. Maya stared at the envelope. It was thick, heavy, cream-colored, her name printed in perfect calligraphy across the front. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside a single card, dinner 7 o'clock, dress code black. Driver will arrive at 6:30. And below that, I haven't stopped thinking about you. Her mouth went dry. Someone behind her asked for an espresso and she forgot how to speak. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Her thoughts were too loud, too fast. She rushed home, tore through her closet, swore under her breath. She didn't own anything remotely appropriate for whatever this was. Everything she owned said casual and broke. But she found something. An old black dress fitted but simple. A hand-me-down from her sister. She pulled it on, added lipstick, tied her hair up, stared at herself in the mirror like she didn't recognize the girl looking back. At exactly 6:30, a sleek black car pulled up in front of her building. The driver stepped out, opened the door without a word. Maya sat down, heart in her throat. The ride was silent, smooth, surreal. She expected a restaurant, a private dining room, something extravagant. She did not expect a townhouse. The car stopped in front of a stunning white building tucked between rows of expensive brownstones with iron railings and tall windows glowing with warm light. The driver opened the door again. She's expecting you. Maya climbed the steps, heels clicking, nerves unraveling. Before she could knock, the door opened. Celine stood there in black again. This time, a satin blouse and tailored pants that clung in all the right places. Her hair was down, her makeup soft, but her eyes burned. "You came," she said, voice low. "You invited me. I wasn't sure you'd accept." "Neither was I." Celine stepped aside. Maya entered. The townhouse was exactly what she'd imagined. Elegant, minimalist, warm, but curated, like nothing was here by accident. The dining room was small but stunning, camo-let with a private chef already plating 2 dishes. Celine led her to the table, pulled out her chair, sat across from her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. "You didn't tell me who you were," Maya said finally. "Would you have stayed if I had?" "I don't know. You didn't look at me like I was my name," Celine said. "I liked that. You still should have said something." "Maybe," she said. "But then I wouldn't have known if you wanted me or the story that comes with me." "And now?" Maya asked. Celine leaned forward. "Now I'm trying to make you want both." Maya's breath caught. "Why me?" You didn't flinch. "At what?" "At me." Celine smiled. "Slow. Dangerous. No one does that. They play polite. They act impressed. You looked at me like I was just a woman." "You are," Maya whispered. "Not to most people." "And to me, that depends," Maya said, matching her stare. "On what you do next." The chef served dinner. Conversation flowed like wine. Easy, natural, charged beneath the surface. Celine listened more than Maya expected, laughed even, and by dessert, the tension between them had stretched to its breaking point. "So," Celine said, watching her voice low, "if I asked you to come upstairs right now, would you?" Maya stared at her. "Is that how you end your blind dates?" "You weren't a blind date," Celine said. "You were a mistake. A beautiful one, and I don't want to let you walk away from it." Maya stood slowly, walked to her side of the table. "Then don't." Celine rose. "Close now. Closer." "If I kiss you," she murmured. "I won't stop." "Then start." And she did. Celine's kiss was nothing like Maya had imagined. And she'd imagined it more than once since the moment she walked away from that cafe. It wasn't slow or tentative. It wasn't cautious. It was immediate, confident, and consuming. Celine kissed like she always got what she wanted. Hesitation didn't seem to exist in her vocabulary. Celine's hands rose to frame Maya's face, angling it just so, deepening the kiss without asking, and somehow earning the right anyway. Maya dissolved into it. She couldn't tell where she ended and Celine began. Everything was heat, breath, and pulse, a surge that left her lightheaded and wanting. When Celine finally drew back, it was only long enough to meet her eyes and murmur, "Come with me." Upstairs was exactly what Maya imagined from a woman like Celine: dark wood, muted light, sheets that probably cost more than her month's rent. There wasn't time to think. Celine pulled her close again before the door even clicked shut. Their mouths met with hunger, teeth, tongue, hands already worrying at zippers, at fabric, at the thin sliver of distance still between them. Celine didn't undress Maya like unwrapping a present. She opened her like a secret, and Maya let her, wanted her to. With each breath, each soft sound, each arch of her back, her guard slipped away. And the woman who seemed so cool in public was anything but here. Celine groaned, whispered, held on to Maya like she might vanish. They didn't hurry, but it wasn't slow either, an urgency that felt like recognition, as if they'd met in another life and finally found their way back. Afterward, they lay knotted together, limbs entwined, skin damp, their breathing easing in tandem. Celine said nothing at first, just traced Maya's hair, her shoulder, her waist, again and again, as if confirming she was real. "I shouldn't have let you come upstairs," she said at last, lips near Maya's neck. "Then why did you?" "Because you asked me to." "That's not like you, is it?" Celine sighed. "No, and this? Is this something you do often?" "No." "Then what are we doing?" Celine held her gaze for a long beat. "I don't know. But I don't want it to end." Maya's chest tightened. She hadn't expected this, not from someone like Celine, and certainly not after one night. "So, what happens now?" Celine hesitated. "Stay the night. And tomorrow. We'll figure it out." Maya should have said no. She should have gathered her clothes and left while there was still space to breathe. But she didn't. She stayed. And when morning came, sunlight spilling across the sheets, Celine was already up, dressed, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, like a painting, a storm contained by silk. She turned when she felt Maya wake. There's breakfast in the kitchen, she said. You don't have to rush. You didn't vanish on me, Maya said. I thought billionaires were supposed to disappear after they got what they wanted. Maybe I want more. Maya sat up slowly, sheets falling from her bare skin. Celine's eyes flickered just once. Careful, Maya said. You're staring like you like me. That's because I do. Celine walked over, sat at the edge of the bed. I want to see you again. You say that like I'm not still here. I mean beyond this. Maya hesitated. This is fast. Yes. And intense also. Yes. I have 2 jobs, a very average apartment. I can't jet off to Paris or take weekend trips on yachts. I don't want yachts. Celine said. I want you. Maya stared at her. You don't even know me, then let me. Celine leaned in. Let me take you out again. Not as an accident. Not as a mistake. Just as mine. The words hit hard. Maya wanted to say yes. Wanted to fall, but she'd spent so long keeping her feet on the ground. It terrified her. Okay, she whispered. Celine smiled. Good. That day, Celine sent her home in the car again. But this time, the driver handed her something else along with the ride, a phone. Sleek, new, her name already programmed inside. 1 contact saved. Celine. Maya almost rolled her eyes. Almost, but she kept it. That afternoon, she went to work like normal, took orders, refilled drinks, but the phone burned in her pocket. And when it finally buzzed, her heart nearly leapt out of her chest. Dinner tomorrow, my place again. No pressure, but I can't stop thinking about your mouth. Maya flushed, typed back with trembling fingers. You should try focusing on your meetings instead of my lips. Tried, failed. Maya grinned and then paused. Her entire world was changing. And it had started because she sat at the wrong table. Or maybe the right one all along. Maya stood outside Celine's townhouse for the second time in 3 days, heart pounding harder than it should have been. This wasn't a first date anymore. Not really. They'd already kissed, touched, undressed, and memorized parts of each other most couples took weeks, months to reach. But tonight wasn't about sex. Not for Maya. Tonight was about answers. About seeing if this spark could survive outside candlelight and satin sheets. When the door opened, Celine looked just as composed as ever, dressed down. If such a thing existed in her world, a cashmere sweater that clung to her frame, dark jeans, barefoot, her hair was pulled back. And yet, something about her felt even more dangerous like this. Intimate, private. You came, Celine said. You invited me. Still, I wasn't sure. I almost didn't. Celine stepped aside. Why? Because you scare the hell out of me. Celine didn't smile, but she didn't look surprised either. Honesty again. Isn't that what you like about me? Among other things, Maya walked in, the door closing behind her like a quiet choice being made. Celine led her into the dining room again, but the setup was different this time. Less formal. No chef, no candles, just 2 plates on the kitchen island. Wine already open. Something that smelled warm and home-cooked coming from the oven. You cooked? Maya asked. I own a multi-million-dollar company, Celine said. Of course I have a private chef, but sometimes I like to remember what it's like to do things myself. Maya raised an eyebrow. So, this is you trying to be normal? Celine poured her a glass of wine. This is me trying to meet you halfway. Why? Celine leaned against the counter. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Maya looked down at the wine in her hands, unsure what to say. No one had ever said something like that to her with that much weight. That much truth. You don't even know me, she whispered. But I want to. I built empires on instinct, Maya. And my instinct tells me that if I let you slip through my fingers, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The words hit harder than they should have. Maya wasn't used to being wanted like that. Not in a way that felt serious, deliberate, earned. Dinner was quiet, but charged. Celine didn't try to impress her. She didn't show off. She asked questions. She listened. She told Maya about her childhood in France. About how her father died young and her mother raised her to be sharper than anyone in the room. About boarding schools and boardrooms, about how she made her first million before turning 25. And her first enemy before turning 26. Maya told her about her younger sister. The student loans, the apartment with a broken heater. The fear of falling behind every day. Celine didn't flinch, didn't look down on her, didn't pity her either. She just listened. After dinner, they sat on the couch, wine glasses in hand, music soft in the background. Celine sat closer now, knee touching Maya's. "You don't let people in easily," Celine said. "That's rich coming from you." "Fair. Why me?" Maya asked suddenly. "Why this much interest in a girl who edits other people's books and spills coffee for a living?" Celine turned to her. "Because when you sat at my table, you didn't apologize for being the wrong girl. You stayed. You were real, and real is rare in my world." Maya stared at her. "You're going to ruin me." "I hope not," Celine said softly. "I'm trying not to." The silence between them stretched thin. Electric. Maya leaned in. Just slightly. Celine met her halfway. The kiss this time was different. Not rushed, not hungry, just steady and certain. When they broke apart, Celine rested her forehead against Maya's. "Stay," she whispered. "Just for the night." "I can't keep doing this," Maya said. "Why not?" "Because I'm starting to want things I can't afford to lose." Celine pulled back, eyes searching hers. "Then let me give you something you can't lose." "Like what?" "A reason to stay?" Maya swallowed. She wanted to say yes, but she also wanted to run. She wasn't built for this. For women who gave you wine and promises and looked at you like they could break you just by needing you too much. "I should go," Maya said. "If you leave now, you won't come back," Celine said, calm but certain. "You don't know that." "I do." Maya stood. So did Celine. For a moment, they just looked at each other. A millionaire and a waitress. A woman who ran the world and another who could barely hold her own together. And yet, it didn't feel uneven. It felt like a choice, one they were both afraid to make. "Good night, Celine," Maya said softly. Celine didn't answer, just watched her walk away. The next morning, there was no text, no card, no invitation, just silence. Maya went to work. She tried to focus, tried to forget the feeling of Celine's hand on hers, her mouth, her voice, but it clung to her like perfume, like memory. By noon, she couldn't take it. She pulled out the phone Celine had given her and stared at the contact name. One message, that's all it would take. But she didn't type anything. She just looked at the name Celine and wondered how something that started by accident could already feel like the beginning of everything. 2 days passed. Maya didn't hear from Celine. No texts, no driver, no unexpected deliveries or mysterious envelopes. Nothing. It was like the woman had evaporated. And it shouldn't have mattered. Maya had barely known her. They'd had one dinner, one night, one mistake that turned into something electric, but it wasn't real. Not really. Not when people like Celine Arden lived in a world entirely separate from the one Maya barely survived in. And still, she couldn't stop thinking about her. About the way Celine had looked at her like she saw every scar, every fear, and wanted her anyway. About the silence that followed when Maya had walked away. Not angry, not manipulative, just quiet. It hurt more than it should have. Jules, her best friend, noticed the shift. "Okay, you've been staring at your phone for 20 minutes like it murdered your cat," she said, sliding into the booth at the diner where Maya worked evenings. "Spill." Maya sighed. "I met someone." "You mean someone who's not a book character?" "That's huge." "It wasn't supposed to mean anything." Jules narrowed her eyes. "You're saying that like it did." "She's rich." "Like Billionaire rich, CEO of Arden Holdings, rich." Jules choked on her water. "I'm sorry, what?" "I didn't know who she was at first. It was a blind date. I sat at the wrong table and she just let you stay." "She didn't just let me. She wanted me to." Jules leaned in. "Is she hot?" "She's insane. She's perfect. She cooks. She listens. She's intense in this way that makes you feel like nothing else in the world matters but you." "So why are you acting like she broke your heart?" "Because I left. I freaked out. And she hasn't called since." "No." Jules tilted her head. "You want her to?" "God." Maya whispered. "Yes." "Then stop being a coward." Maya blinked. "Excuse me. You're acting like she's untouchable. But if she made you feel seen, if she listened, if she asked you to stay, then she's not untouchable. She's just hurt like you." That night, Maya couldn't sleep again. She stared at the ceiling, the phone beside her, Celine's name taunting her in perfect letters. She thought about what it had felt like to lie in that bed wrapped in Celine's arms. How safe it had been. How terrifying. By morning, she'd made up her mind. She called in sick. Then she got dressed. Nothing fancy, just her favorite jeans, a white shirt that made her feel like herself, and a black coat she'd kept for years. She took the subway. No driver, no luxury, just nerves. The townhouse looked exactly the same. Cold, stunning, a fortress. She stood in front of the door for nearly a full minute before knocking. Once. Twice, then silence. Her heart dropped. She turned to leave, but then click. The door opened. Celine stood there in a robe, hair slightly damp, skin flushed like she'd just stepped out of the shower, her eyes locked on Maya. No smile, no welcome, just that unbearable stillness. "Hi," Maya said softly. Celine stared at her. "Did you forget something?" "Yes," Maya said. "You." That broke the silence. Celine's brows lifted a slow, skeptical motion. "You left, Maya." "I know. I told you if you walked away, you wouldn't come back. And I told myself that was for the best." "Was it?" Maya's voice cracked. "No," Celine didn't move. "Why are you here?" "Because you were right about all of it. I don't let people in. I don't know what I'm doing. I've been terrified since the moment I met you. But not because of who you are. Because of what you make me feel." "And what do I make you feel?" "Like I matter. Like I could belong somewhere. Like I'm more than just surviving." Celine stepped aside. Maya entered. The door closed. The tension between them stretched tighter than it ever had. "I didn't know if you'd answer," Maya said. "I wasn't going to." "Why did you?" "Because I've been thinking about your mouth, too." That made Maya smile. Celine stepped closer. "Do you think I'm playing with you?" "No." "Do you think this is a game to me?" "No." "Then stop treating it like one," Celine whispered. "Stop running when I'm standing still." Maya didn't answer. She just reached up, hands gentle against Celine's jaw, and kissed her. Not desperate, not wild, just honest, soft, apologetic. Celine pulled her close, held her like forgiveness. They didn't rush to the bedroom. They stayed in the foyer, arms wrapped around each other, lips moving slowly like time was bending just for them. "Stay," Celine said again. Maya nodded. "I don't want to leave anymore." Later, wrapped in the same robe, sitting on the couch with her legs over Celine's lap, Maya finally said what had been on her mind since the beginning. "This still feels impossible." "It is impossible," Celine said. "I'm not going to pretend it's not." "So, what now?" Celine looked at her. "We make it possible anyway." For a week, the world outside stopped existing. Maya didn't go to work. Celine didn't go to meetings. They lived in a kind of bubble neither of them dared to name. Waking up tangled in silk sheets and kisses, eating breakfast barefoot in the kitchen while jazz played low through hidden speakers, reading beside each other on the couch like they had always belonged there. It was unreal, intoxicating, dangerous, because even though it felt like something out of a dream, reality still existed beyond Celine's townhouse walls. And eventually it came knocking. The first sign was a phone call. Celine ignored it. The second was a knock on the door. She answered it. Maya heard the voices from the other room. Low, sharp, professional. When Celine returned, her entire posture had shifted. "I have to go into the office," she said. "Something's come up." Maya sat up from the couch. "Is everything okay?" "It will be." "That doesn't sound reassuring." Celine leaned down, kissed her forehead. "I'll be back in 2 hours. Stay here, please." Maya nodded. Celine left. She didn't return in 2 hours or 3 or 5. Maya paced the townhouse like it might give her answers. She tried to read, couldn't focus. She tried to text Celine, got short responses. Finally, after 7 hours, the front door opened. Celine walked in looking drained, cold, furious. She didn't speak, just went straight to the bar and poured herself a drink. Maya followed her. "What happened?" Celine stared into her glass. "Someone leaked photos of us." Maya's stomach dropped. "Photos from the restaurant, from outside the townhouse. They're all over the gossip sites. I didn't even see anyone take pictures." "You wouldn't." "That's the point." Maya stepped closer. "Celine, this is what I was trying to protect you from." "Protect me? You think I care about gossip?" "You should." Celine snapped. "Because my world is cruel. It doesn't like outsiders. It chews them up. And now your headline." Maya stared at her. "So what?" "We hide. You pretend I don't exist." "I don't know." Celine said, voice quieter. This isn't just about you and me anymore. Investors are calling journalists. My board wants answers. And what do you want? Celine looked at her, then really looked you. The word was soft, wrecked, honest. But I don't know how to have you without destroying everything else. Then maybe the problem isn't me, Maya said. Maybe it's the world you built around yourself. Celine didn't answer. That night they didn't sleep tangled together. They didn't talk. Maya stayed in the guest room, not because she wanted to, but because Celine didn't ask her to stay. The next day, Maya went back to her apartment. No argument, no fight, just quiet departure. Celine didn't stop her. The silence after felt louder than anything Maya had ever known. The headlines were worse than she expected. Celine Arden's secret lover revealed. Waitress or gold digger? The billionaire's toy, who is Maya Carter? It was vicious, degrading, personal. Her social media exploded. Her workplace stared. Jules looked like she wanted to murder someone. Are you okay? She asked as they sat together in Maya's tiny apartment. Not even a little. Did she dump you? No, but she didn't fight for me either. So, what are you going to do? I don't know. Yes, you do. Jules said, you love her. Maya laughed bitterly. You don't fall in love in a week. No, Jules said. But you fall in love when someone makes you feel like you're finally seen, heard, safe, and you haven't shut up about her since the moment you sat at the wrong table. Maya swallowed. It wasn't the wrong table. Exactly. A knock interrupted them. Maya froze. Jules stood slowly, walked to the door. She opened it. Celine was standing on the other side, drenched from the rain, breathless, holding a newspaper in one hand, her coat half off her shoulder, her hair undone. Hi, she said, eyes locked on Maya. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone who puts love before power. I don't know how to be soft in front of the world. But I know I miss you so much it's eating me alive. Maya stood. Celine, let them write their headlines, Celine said. Let them scream. Let them speculate. I don't care. I want you in every room. In every future. Jules stepped back silently. Maya crossed the room. You didn't fight for me. I didn't know how. And now I'm learning. Celine reached out, brushing a wet strand of hair behind Maya's ear. Come back with me. What's changed? I have. Maya looked at her, at the chaos, at the woman who built an empire and was now standing in her crumbling doorway asking for her heart. She reached out, took Celine's hand, then let's rebuild it together. They didn't go back to the townhouse that night. Celine didn't take Maya to some luxury suite or guarded residence. She stayed in Maya's tiny apartment with the squeaky bathroom door and the unreliable radiator and the faded couch that had more memories than cushion. She stayed like she belonged there, like she didn't need marble floors or imported wines or curated silence to feel safe. And maybe that's what broke Maya most. How Celine Arden, the woman who ruled rooms with her presence alone, walked barefoot through her cramped hallway with a glass of tap water like it was the most natural thing in the world. That night, they slept on Maya's too small bed, legs tangled, arms wrapped tight, no pretense between them. Celine didn't ask for silence. Maya didn't offer reassurances. They just existed side by side, finally stripped of everything except the ache they'd carried since they met. I don't want to lose you, Maya whispered into the dark. Celine didn't hesitate. Then don't. The next morning, Maya woke up to find Celine already dressed, standing by the window on the phone. Her voice was low, calm, laced with power. It was the first time Maya had seen her like this in her space. Still the same woman, still unshakable, but softer somehow. When she hung up, she turned around. I'm not going to the office today. Maya blinked. You're not? No. Why? Because you're more important. Maya rolled her eyes. God, you say things like that and I forget how to function. Good. They made breakfast together. Celine in designer slacks and no shoes. Maya in a hoodie that had seen better days. It was chaos. Eggs burned, toast fell, coffee spilled, they laughed, they kissed. And in those little moments, Maya felt it again. That dangerous sense that she could fall completely, that she already had. Later, as they sat side by side on the couch, Celine finally brought up the thing neither of them had wanted to say out loud. The board is furious. Maya stiffened. Because of me. Because of the press. They want you to drop me. They want me to disappear for a while. Focus on the next merger. Clean up the narrative. And what did you say? Celine turned her body toward her. I said no. Maya's heart thundered. You said no. Yes. I told them if they wanted to remove me, they could try, but I wouldn't erase you from my life to protect their comfort. Celine, that could cost me everything. She smiled a little sad. Yes, but I've built this empire once. I can do it again. I won't build a life without you in it. Maya sat frozen, the weight of the words sinking in. Celine reached for her hand. I want to introduce you to people properly, not just as a headline, as mine. Celine, come with me to the next gala. There's one next week. Everyone will be there. Investors, politicians, press. You want to take me to that? I want to be seen with you. Maya's instincts screamed to run. She wasn't built for gowns and camera flashes and people whispering behind their hands. But another part of her, stronger, braver, louder, whispered, yes. Okay, she said. Celine blinked. Okay, I'll go. Celine leaned in, kissed her slow, reverent. You're going to destroy me. Good. Maya whispered. You deserve it. The week passed fast. Too fast. Celine stayed most nights. They fell into something that looked alarmingly like domesticity. Grocery shopping together in hoodies and sunglasses, cooking meals that only half succeeded, brushing teeth side by side in a mirror too small for two. And all the while, Maya's nerves built. The gala loomed like a storm cloud. Jules helped her find a dress. You look like you're about to faint, she said as Maya stood in front of the mirror, dressed in sleek black, lips painted, eyes lined. I'm about to be paraded in front of billionaires. Jules, and you're dating one of them, so suck it up. You look hot. Maya didn't feel hot. She felt like an imposter. But when Celine showed up to pick her up, dressed in a custom tuxedo, all clean lines and devastating confidence, everything else disappeared. You're stunning, Celine said, breath-catching. You're not so bad yourself, Maya whispered. The car ride was quiet, anticipatory. The closer they got, the more Maya's hands shook. Celine reached over, threading their fingers together. No one touches you tonight unless you want them to. No one speaks to you like you don't belong. You are mine and I am yours. That's the only truth I care about. The moment they stepped onto the carpet, cameras exploded, lights flashed, voices shouted Celine's name, and beside her, Maya, holding her hand, head held high, trying not to tremble. Celine didn't let go. Not once. Inside, the ballroom was dripping with luxury, crystal chandeliers, polished marble, gowns that sparkled with each breath. People stared, some whispered, others approached with careful smiles and sharper eyes. Celine introduced Maya, not as a guest, not as a date, but as her partner, her equal. This is Maya Carter, she said, voice proud. The woman I love. Maya almost choked. Celine didn't flinch, didn't soften, just let the truth hang in the air like armor. The night was a blur of handshakes, fake smiles, compliments that weren't really compliments. But through it all, Celine stayed close, protecting her. Choosing her until one woman, older, powerful, with the kind of elegance that came with generational wealth, approached and said, "Are you really going to throw away your legacy over a waitress?" Maya froze. Celine didn't. Yes, she said gladly and walked away without another word. In the hallway outside the ballroom, Celine turned to Maya. Was that too much? No, Maya said breathless. It was everything. Then she kissed her. There in front of 1,000 diamonds and judgments. And Celine kissed her back like the world didn't matter. The headlines the next morning were louder than ever. Not whispers this time, shouts. Celine Arden detests love on gala stage. CEO risks empire for waitress, the billionaire and the barista. Is it real? Social media exploded with photos of their kiss, clips of Celine saying gladly when asked if Maya was worth her legacy. The internet was on fire and Maya was the center of it. For every person who swooned, praised, or posted hearts in the comments, there were others who tore her apart. Gold digger, social climber, nobody. And in every photo, every angle, she saw herself next to Celine, shoulders back, eyes proud. But underneath that strength, she remembered how tightly she'd been gripping Celine's hand. How her palms had been sweating through the entire night. This is wild, Jules said, flipping through articles on her phone as Maya sat on the edge of the bed. You're literally trending. God, they're calling you the ardent girlfriend. I have a name. I know, but the world only sees the story. I didn't sign up for this. Yes, you did. Jules said the second you chose to stay. And she was right. Celine arrived later that day, not in a car, on foot. Hoodie pulled over her hair, sunglasses in hand, jaw tense. Maya opened the door before she could knock. You're walking around the city. I needed the air. Celine, I've done a lot of things in my life that required bravery, she said, pulling down the hoodie. Hostile takeovers, courtroom battles, silence in front of cameras. But standing next to you last night was the first time I felt afraid, and I did it anyway. Maya softened. Are you okay? Not even remotely, but I would do it again. They sat on the floor of her apartment, backs against the couch, knees touching. The board issued a vote of confidence, Celine said. Barely. Half of them want me out. The other half are watching to see what I do next. What do you want to do? I want to buy them out. Maya's head snapped up. You what? I've been preparing for it. Quietly buying back shares. Consolidating influence. If I go through with it, I'll no longer answer to anyone. Arden Holdings would be mine completely. But that's massive. So is how I feel about you. Maya blinked. You're doing this because of me. I'm doing this because I'm tired of living for other people's comfort. I built this. I deserve to own it. And I want to live without asking permission to love you. Maya sat in stunned silence. Celine turned to her, but it comes with risk. Once I do this, there's no going back. The media will turn us into a spectacle. Your life won't be private anymore. People will come for you. They already are. It'll get worse. And if I say I'm ready anyway, Celine's hand found hers. Then we do it together. Maya squeezed her fingers. Then let's do it. That night, Celine made the announcement. A press release, a statement, a televised appearance in which she looked straight into the camera and said, I'm taking back what I built, and I'm doing it on my terms. The financial world lost its mind. Stocks dipped, then surged. Analysts speculated, enemies moved. Maya watched it all from the sidelines. Heart in her throat. Celine didn't blink, didn't falter. She looked like power incarnate. But at night, when she came home to Maya, her hands shook. Her body trembled. She held Maya tighter than usual. I'm terrified, she whispered. Good, Maya whispered back. That means it matters. The next few days were a blur of meetings, legal documents, appearances. Maya stayed mostly out of sight, not by Celine's command, but by choice. She didn't want to distract. She wanted to support, but the world didn't care what she wanted. One night, she came home to find her front door vandalized. Spray paint, red slashes, the words, stay in your lane. Maya stared at it in shock. Jules came running seconds later. Oh my God. It's fine. Maya said too fast. I'll clean it. It's not fine. Maya's hands trembled. I didn't do anything wrong. You fell in love. Jules said that's not wrong. Celine arrived 15 minutes later. She didn't knock. She didn't speak. She stood in front of the door, took one long look at the red scroll, then turned to Maya. Come home with me. This is my home. Not anymore. Not if it's not safe. I won't have you looking over your shoulder every time you walk through a door. You belong somewhere protected with me. Maya's walls cracked. She nodded. Celine packed her things in silence, efficient and calm. But her grip on the bag's handle betrayed her rage. That night, they returned to the townhouse together. Celine opened the gates, reset the security, called in extra guards. Maya watched her transform into someone new, protective, fierce, shaken. When they finally sat in bed together, Maya crawled into her lap and whispered, I'm not going anywhere. Celine buried her face in Maya's shoulder. Neither am I. In the morning, Celine went back to war. Maya stayed behind, but not alone. She watched the press, followed the statements, fielded messages from strangers, both kind and cruel. But one message came that froze her blood. An email, no subject, no name, just one line. If you don't leave her, we'll make sure she's the one who disappears. Maya stared at the screen, her whole body going cold. And for the first time, she wondered how much love was she really strong enough to survive. Maya didn't tell Celine about the email. Not that day. Not the next. She told herself it was because she didn't want to distract her. Not now. Not while she was locked in meetings, severing decades-old corporate ties, reshaping the company she'd built with blood and brilliance. But deep down, Maya knew the truth. She was scared not just of the threat, but of what Celine might do in response. Because Celine wasn't the kind of woman who backed down. If someone came for Maya, she'd burn the world. Maya wasn't sure who would survive the blaze. She stared at the message again and again, rereading the line, "If you don't leave her, we'll make sure she's the one who disappears." No sender, no trace, just fear, cold and clinging. She deleted it, but it lodged in her mind like a splinter. That night, Celine came home late and wrung out, bag dropped, heels kicked aside, folding into Maya's arms as if she'd been holding herself together for too long. Maya threaded her fingers through Celine's hair. "Hard day. They want blood," Celine murmured. "They want to humiliate me for refusing to fall in line, and they forgot who I am." Maya managed a faint smile that never reached her eyes. Celine caught it. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm just tired." "Lie better." Maya hesitated. "I'm scared," she said at last. Celine went still. "Of what?" "Of being the reason you lose everything." "No," Celine said, firmer. "You are not the reason. You're the one thing that makes all of this worth fighting for. Do you understand?" "I want to." Celine held her tighter. "Then let me keep you safe." But safety felt farther away than ever. Maya barely slept. Every creak made her flinch. Every passing shadow outside the window read like a watcher. She started jumping at small noises, double-checking locks, leaving lights on. Celine noticed. "Maya," she said one morning, stepping into the kitchen. "What aren't you telling me?" Maya froze, the coffee mug trembling in her hand. Celine came closer. "You're scared. You've been pretending otherwise, but I see it. I feel it." "What happened?" Maya's mouth opened, closed, then finally, "I got an email." Celine didn't breathe. "What did it say?" "That if I didn't leave you, they'd make sure you disappeared." Silence, heavy and suffocating. Then Celine stepped back, and something in her face shifted, darker than anything Maya had seen in a boardroom or during scandal. Colder. Deadlier. "This was 3 nights ago," she said. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew what you'd do. You knew I'd protect you." "No," Maya whispered. "I knew you'd go to war." Celine turned away, crossed the room, and started making calls. Her voice was ice. Within minutes she'd ordered surveillance, cybersecurity sweeps, full background checks. 15 minutes later, the townhouse had 3 additional guards, cameras on every angle, an entire security firm mobilized. Maya stood in the center of it, heart pounding, watching their home transform into a fortress. "You're not just someone I'm seeing," Celine said after hanging up. "You're the woman I would burn the world for. I won't lose you. If they want me, let them come, but they won't touch you. I swear it." Maya nodded, eyes stinging. Because the love between them had become a weapon, beautiful, powerful, dangerous, and she wasn't sure how long she could bear being the reason Celine sharpened her blades. That afternoon, Celine vanished into meetings. Maya stayed inside, pacing, until the front desk buzzed. "Delivery for Maya Carter from whom?" "No name." Against her better judgment, Maya allowed it. When the package arrived, it was small, black box, no markings. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single key, gold, heavy, attached to a card that said only one word. "Decide." She dropped it instantly, heart racing. Jules came over the next hour, took one look at her, and said, "What happened?" Maya told her everything. The message, the key, the email. Jules's face drained of color. "You need to leave now." "I'm not leaving her. This is serious. Whoever this is, they're not playing games. Neither is Celine." Jules looked at her long and hard. "You're not just in love with her. You're in deep. I'd bleed for her." "Yeah," Jules whispered. "That's what I'm afraid of." That night, Maya didn't tell Celine about the key. Not yet. But she started locking the bedroom door. She started watching the shadows again. And when she kissed Celine before bed, it felt like a goodbye she didn't want to say out loud because somewhere out there, someone wanted them to fall. And Maya didn't know how to win a war where love itself had become the battlefield. Maya didn't sleep. She lay beside Celine, listening to the slow rhythm of her breath, watching the city lights flicker across the ceiling like ghosts. The key still sat in her coat pocket, burning. She hadn't told Celine. Not yet. Something in her said, "Don't." Not because she didn't trust her, but because she wasn't sure Celine wouldn't take it as a declaration of war. And maybe that was what the sender wanted. Maybe that's why they gave her a choice. Decide between love and safety, between comfort and chaos, between staying and running. Celine stirred beside her, turning slightly in her sleep. Even now, even tangled in cotton sheets and vulnerability, she looked like a queen. And Maya, she felt like a liability, like a target with a price tag on her back. She slipped out of bed and padded barefoot into the hallway. The night air tasted like silence. The security cameras blinked softly in the corners. The guards had been doubled. Alarm set, but Maya didn't feel safe. Not really. Not anymore. She walked down to the study, Celine's favorite room. It smelled like old books, leather, and the perfume Celine always wore. Maya stood there for a long time, trying to breathe, trying not to cry. Her phone buzzed. She checked it. No name, just a number. A message. Clock's ticking. She dropped the phone. Her knees gave out. She sank into Celine's leather armchair and buried her face in her hands. It wasn't just a game. Whoever was doing this, they were inside. They knew where she was. When she was alone, they were watching her. She didn't remember falling asleep, but she woke up with a blanket over her shoulders and Celine crouched in front of her. Maya. Her voice was soft, controlled. Why are you down here? Maya stared at her and broke. Someone sent me a key. Celine froze. What? A black box. No name. It was delivered here. The card said, decide. And now they're texting me. Celine's expression didn't change, but her hands did. They clenched slowly, silently. How long have you had the key? 2 days. 2. Maya. I was scared. You should have told me. I know. Celine stood pacing now. Her hands moved to her temples. They've escalated. This isn't a bluff anymore. They're trying to make you feel cornered. It's working. No. Celine turned back to her. We're not playing defense anymore. We're going to find them. Celine, I have people. Private security, hackers, analysts. You don't threaten what's mine and walk away untouched. And what if they're inside? Maya whispered, what if it's someone you already trust? Celine blinked and for the first time, she looked uncertain. That's a possibility I've tried not to think about. Maya stood across the room. We're not safe, are we? No. But we're together, and that means we have a chance. Maya reached into her coat and pulled out the key. She placed it in Celine's hand. Celine stared at it. This is custom, she said after a moment. Gold-plated industrial cut. Could belong to a private building, a vault, maybe even a safe house. So, it's real. It's not just a threat. It's an invitation to what? A trap? Probably. Celine pocketed the key. I'm going to trace it. Be careful always. The rest of the day passed in tension. Celine's staff was questioned. Backgrounds rechecked. The house was swept again for bugs. The phone was cloned and the number traced. But everything led nowhere. Whoever was doing this, they were good. That night, Celine didn't sleep. Neither did Maya. They sat together on the balcony, wrapped in blankets, the city below them glowing like a million secrets. If anything happens to me, Maya whispered. You have to let me go. Celine turned her head slowly. Don't ever say that again. I'm serious. So am I. I don't let go of the things I love. Maya blinked. You love me. You didn't know. I hoped. Celine leaned in, touched her forehead to Maya's. I didn't mean to. I didn't plan to, but I do. So much it makes me reckless. Maya kissed her soft trembling. I love you too. That moment could have been peace. Could have been safety. But hours later, the front gate alarms exploded. Security rushed to intercept. A figure fled into the night. Disappeared. But in their place, another black box. Sitting at the front door. Inside a photograph. Celine in a meeting, unaware. Taken from above and written on the back, scrolled in red ink. She'll be gone before you even notice. Celine stared at the photo, then at Maya. I'm going to kill them, she said, voice like frost. Maya's hands shook. They were watching you. They're always watching. But now I watch back. And something shifted in Celine Arden's eyes. Something dark, something unstoppable. Because this wasn't about control anymore or legacy or pride. Someone had threatened the one person she couldn't live without. And Celine Arden had never lost anything that mattered to her. She didn't intend to start now. Celine didn't make speeches or threats this time. She vanished into action. In the hours after the photograph arrived, her townhouse became a command center. Men and women Maya had never seen before. Ex-military, cybersecurity experts, private investigators arrived in unmarked cars. Laptops lit up. Phone calls snapped like gunfire. Maps appeared on tables. Names were crossed out. Patterns built. Celine moved through it all like a general preparing for war. Eyes cold, voice lower than a whisper, but somehow carrying across the room. Maya stood in a corner, arms wrapped around herself, watching the transformation. She'd known Celine was powerful, ruthless even. But this was something else. This was survival instinct honed into a blade. And yet, when Celine caught her eyes across the room, there was still softness there, like a secret she kept only for Maya. Hours passed. Reports came in. The photo had been taken inside a building Celine had visited 3 days ago. A supposedly secure boardroom at Arden Holdings headquarters, which meant the threat wasn't just from outside. It was internal. "They're close," Celine murmured to Dante, her head of security. "Too close," Maya stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "It means someone with high access has been feeding them information." "Feeding who?" Celine looked at her. "Emilio Navarro." Maya blinked. "Who's that?" "A name from my past. Someone I crushed years ago. When I took Arden Holdings from the old guard, he disappeared. I thought he was finished. I was wrong. And now he's trying to take back everything, starting with me and using you as leverage." Maya's stomach twisted. You're not just anything." Celine snapped. "You're mine, and he knows that. That's why he's doing this. He's trying to make me bleed through you." Maya felt her pulse spike. "Then don't let him." "I won't." Celine touched her face, thumb brushing along her jaw. "I'm not going to let anyone touch you ever." The plan moved fast. Celine's team traced the key Maya had been sent. It belonged to a private storage facility on the edge of the city. Luxury, high security, owned under a shell corporation tied to Navarro. "It's a trap," Dante said. "Of course, it's a trap," Celine replied. "But it's also an opening." "You can't go yourself," Dante warned. "It's a kill box." "I'm not sending someone else to protect her," Celine said. "I'll go." Maya stepped forward. "I'm going too." Celine turned sharply. "Absolutely not. I'm tired of being the girl you protect in the corner," Maya said. "I'm not helpless, Celine. I'm scared, but I'm not helpless. I won't stay behind and wonder if you're coming back." Celine stared at her for a long moment, jaw clenched. Then she exhaled. "You stay close. You listen to me. You do exactly what I say." "I will." "Swear it." "I swear it." At midnight, they left the townhouse in a convoy of black cars. The city blurred past, neon smearing across wet pavement. Celine sat beside Maya in the back seat, one hand resting on her knee, thumb stroking small circles against her skin. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured. "Neither should you," Maya replied. Celine almost smiled. "Fair." The storage facility loomed ahead, cold, industrial, rows of metal doors and motionless cameras. It was quiet. Too quiet. The convoy stopped. Guards fanned out. Celine stepped out first, gun under her coat, eyes scanning every angle. Maya followed, heart in her throat. They moved through the corridors together, boots echoing off concrete, shadows stretching long and thin. They found the unit matching the key's number. Celine slid it into the lock. It turned with a heavy click. She pushed the door open. Inside darkness, the smell of oil and metal, and at the center, a chair empty, a single envelope resting on the seat. Celine approached slowly, gun raised. She picked up the envelope, ripped it open. A single photo slid out. Maya's apartment door, spray painted the red letters, "Stay in your lane." And beneath it, scrolled in the same ink, "She won't survive the next one." Celine's jaw tightened. She turned to Dante. "Shut it down. Everyone out." The team moved. But before they could clear the area, a figure appeared at the far end of the corridor. A man in a gray suit, hands in his pockets, smiling like he was already winning. "Celine," he called softly. "It's been a long time." Celine's hand flexed on her gun. "Navarro, you've made quite a mess for yourself. You're going to regret stepping back into my life." Navarro's eyes slid to Maya. "So, this is the weakness." Celine raised her gun. "Say another word about her and it's the last one you'll ever speak." He chuckled. Still dramatic. And then the lights cut out. Total darkness. Gunfire cracked. Maya screamed Celine's name. The world dissolved into chaos. Gunfire snapped through the dark like lightning tearing apart a silent sky. Maya dropped to the floor, hands over her head, heart slamming against her ribs like it wanted to escape. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe, just flashes, muzzle sparks, moving shadows, shouting voices. "Celine!" she screamed. No answer. She crawled toward the sound of boots, dodging between crates and metal shelves, her ears ringing from the noise. Her lungs burned. Somewhere behind her, a voice shouted, "Target down." She couldn't tell who. Couldn't tell if it meant a guard, Celine, or someone else entirely. Then hands seized her, rough, dragging her backward. She kicked, thrashed, screamed. "Let me go, Maya, it's me. Dante." His voice snapped her back. She clung to him as he pulled her into a side corridor. "Where's Celine?" "She's pushing toward the east exit. We're getting you out now." "No. I'm not leaving without her. She ordered me to protect you. Then stay with me, because I'm not running." Dante swore under his breath but didn't argue again. They moved together, fast and low. Emergency lights strobed to life, dim red spills throwing eerie shadows across the storage unit walls. Bodies were scattered, some Navarro's men, some of theirs. Maya kept her eyes forward, mind blank, feet moving. And there, Celine, at the center of it, crouched behind a steel container, firing with surgical precision. Her face was bloodied, hair wild, jaw locked in lethal calm. Maya's heart broke and fused in a single beat. "Celine." Celine turned, saw her, and for a split second the world paused. Fury and relief flashed in her eyes. She shouted something Maya couldn't catch, just as a bullet punched into her shoulder. Celine reeled. Maya screamed. Time splintered. Dante yanked Maya back before she could bolt, dragging her into cover as Celine dropped behind a crate, hand clamped to her arm. "She's hit," Maya cried. "We have to get to her." "Wait for a clear," Dante shouted. "She'll hold position, just wait." But Maya couldn't wait. Love doesn't idle when the floor is slick with blood. She tore free of Dante's grip, sprinted across open ground, and slid in beside Celine. "You idiot," Celine hissed through clenched teeth. "What are you doing?" "Saving your stubborn ass." Maya pressed both hands to the wound. "You're bleeding." "I've had worse." "That is not reassuring." Celine grimaced, then managed a crooked grin. "Still love me?" "Maybe more." Dante skidded up seconds later. "We move. Now." Together they hauled Celine to her feet. She leaned into Maya, blood soaking her shirt, but her gun stayed rock steady. They advanced in bursts, ducking behind columns, Celine barking orders between gritted teeth. Cut through the south corridor, flank their rear. "Dante, take point." Maya could barely keep up, but she stayed close. Every heartbeat was a countdown. Every breath was a risk. They reached the exit just as backup arrived. More of Celine's people, armed and ready. The tide turned fast. Navarro's men fell back. The chaos unraveled. Maya turned to Celine, who now sat slumped against the wall, face pale, blood loss clear. "We need to get you to a hospital." "No, Celine. They'll watch hospitals. It has to be private. I have someone." She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking, and sent a single text. Moments later, a black car pulled around the side. Dante helped load Celine into the back seat while Maya cradled her head. "Stay awake," she whispered. "Stay with me." "I'm not leaving you," Celine breathed. "You're the only thing I want to live for." The car raced through the city, ignoring red lights, weaving through traffic. Maya never let go of her, not once. They reached a discreet clinic, one Celine clearly owned or funded. No questions were asked. Doctors moved fast. Maya wasn't allowed in at first. She stood outside the door, fists clenched, heart hollow. Hours passed. Dante paced. Jules showed up pale and wide-eyed. After Maya called her. "You're covered in blood," she whispered. "It's hers," Maya said. "Not all of it, but most." Jules hugged her. Maya shook. "She's going to be okay," Jules said. "She's strong." "She was bleeding in my arms, Jules. And she was still holding a gun." Jules reminded her. Finally, the doctor came out. "She'll live," he said. "The bullet passed clean through. No major artery hit. She's lucky." Maya exhaled for the first time in hours. She was allowed inside. The room was white, quiet. Celine lay on the bed, hooked to and for, color slowly returning to her face. When she saw Maya, she smiled faintly. Hey. Maya sat beside her and took her hand. You scared the hell out of me. I told you not to run into gunfire. And I told you not to get shot. Celine chuckled, then winced. Okay, let's call it even. Maya leaned in, kissed her knuckles. I love you. I love you more. Celine's voice dropped. But this isn't over, Navarro. He ran like a coward. But he won't stop. Not until he thinks he's broken me. Then what do we do? Celine's eyes sharpened. We hit back harder. And in that moment, Maya saw it. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, but the woman, wounded, bloodied, in pain, but unshaken, ready to burn down the world for the one she loved. And Maya, she'd burn it with her. The night after the ambush, the world seemed quieter. But it wasn't peace. It was the silence before a storm. Celine stayed in the clinic for observation against her will, and only because Maya refused to let her leave. She was bandaged, stitched, and drugged just enough to keep her body resting, but her mind never stopped. Maya saw it in her eyes every time she walked into the room. Calculations, connexions, strategies. Celine wasn't healing. She was planning. You need rest, Maya told her softly, brushing hair from her forehead. You are shot. I've rested enough. You've been lying in this bed for 6 hours. That's 5.5 more than I like. Celine, he won't stop, Maya. He saw me bleed. He thinks that means I'm weak. We have to make him understand how wrong he is. We will just let your body catch up to your rage. Celine smirked, eyes tired but sharp. I hate that you make me listen to reason. I love that you try. The next day, Celine checked herself out. The clinic objected. Maya glared at them until they relented. Back at the townhouse, the staff tightened security again. More guards, more surveillance. But Celine's focus wasn't defense anymore. It was retaliation. We need to dismantle him, she said to her team quietly, brutally. I want everything, bank accounts, properties, contacts. Find the pressure points. Hit every one of them. Dante nodded. We're already working on it and he's got support. Old names. People who want to see you fall. Then we drag them down with him. Maya watched from the edge of the room, her arms crossed. Celine looked like a general in a war room. Every instruction was clean, precise, cold. But when their eyes met across the space, Celine's expression softened, just for her. Later, when the team cleared out, Celine found Maya alone in the library. She slid behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, pressing her lips to Maya's shoulder. Are you afraid of me now? She asked quietly. You've seen what I'm capable of, Maya turned in her arms. I'm not afraid of what you'll do to them. I'm afraid of what it's doing to you. I'm already cracked, Celine whispered. He's just trying to finish the break. Then let me hold the pieces together. Celine kissed her slow and aching. That night, Celine revealed her next move. We lure him out. How? Maya asked. He thinks I'm recovering, hiding. Weak. So, we give him an opportunity to strike. Selene, no. A party, a public event, not official, not business, personal, something he'll crash. Thinking he's got the upper hand. You're baiting him. Exactly. But this time, I'm ready. So am I. No, Celine's eyes hardened. You stay out of this one. You don't get to decide that. I almost died in your arms, Maya. I'm not doing that to you again. And if it's me next time, it won't be. You can't promise that. No, Celine said, voice breaking. But I can try. Maya touched her face. Then we try together. 2 days later, the invitations went out. A private celebration for select guests. Word would leak. It was designed to. Celine used her name as bait and it worked. Surveillance caught Navarro's people poking around the building where the event was set. They didn't hide it. They wanted Celine to know. They think they're smarter. Dante said they're not. The night arrived. The building was wired. Every entrance monitored. Security disguised as staff. Cameras hidden in vases behind mirrors. Maya wore a dress Celine had chosen for her. Deep emerald green, sleek, elegant, dangerous. Celine's eyes ran over her when she walked in. You look lethal. So do you, Maya murmured. Let's kill this. The room filled with laughter, music, champagne. But beneath the surface, everything was tense, controlled. Celine mingled like nothing was wrong, her arm always around Maya, their bodies close, movements practiced. Navarro arrived fashionably late, of course, dressed like he belonged there, surrounded by his own shadows. Maya saw him first, her body stiffened. "He's here." Celine turned, their eyes locked across the room. Navarro smiled, tipped his glass. Celine stepped forward. "Let's end this." They met in the center of the room, surrounded by false warmth. "You look well," Navarro said smoothly. "For someone who bleeds, you look overconfident," Celine replied. "For someone who runs to Shay, you came to make a point." "Make it." Navarro leaned closer. "You've made yourself vulnerable, Celine. This girl, she's the thread that unravels you." "Funny," Celine said. "I was about to say the same to you." The lights cut, but this time it was Celine's doing. Backup power activated instantly. Her security swarmed. Navarro's people moved. Too slow. Tranquilizers. Restraints. Neutralized in seconds. Navarro turned furious, but 2 guards pinned his arms. "What is this?" he spat. "Justice," Celine said. "Long overdue." Maya stood behind her, watching as Navarro's eyes flicked to her, no longer with confidence. "But hate, you're the one who ruined her." "No," Maya said. "She saved me, and I'll save her back every time." Police arrived minutes later. Celine handed everything over, files, proof, confessions extracted quietly. It was clean, legal, lethal. Navarro left in handcuffs, screaming threats that no one listened to. When the door closed behind him, Celine finally exhaled. Maya ran to her. They collapsed into each other's arms. "It's over," Celine whispered. "For now," Maya said. "But if anyone else comes for us, then we burn brighter." Celine kissed her hard, pulling her close in the middle of the chaos. And for the first time in weeks, Maya felt it. Safety. Not because the danger was gone, but because Celine had chosen her over everything, and would keep choosing her, no matter what it cost. In the days following Navarro's arrest, the world finally exhaled. But inside Celine's townhouse, the silence felt different. Not like tension, not like fear, but like a breath held too long. Finally released, Maya sat curled on the couch, legs tucked under her, a book open in her lap, but unread. Across the room, Celine stood by the window, watching the city she once ruled with iron grace now spread before her like something softer. She hadn't spoken much since the night of the takedown. Her shoulder was still bandaged. Her body still healing, but her mind was somewhere far away. Maya closed the book and stood. "Talk to me." Celine didn't turn. "About what?" "About whatever's been sitting in your chest since that night." "It's over, Maya." "Then why don't you feel free?" Celine turned, finally meeting her eyes. And there it was, the crack behind the steel. The exhaustion, the grief, the weight of everything she'd held together for too long. "Because it's not over," she said quietly. "Navarro's in custody, but the scars he tried to leave on us, they're still healing, and I don't know how to stop being a weapon." Maya crossed the room, took her hands. "Then maybe you don't need to stop being a weapon. Maybe you just need to remember you're allowed to put it down sometimes." "What if I don't know how?" "Then let me help you." Celine didn't speak. Just wrapped her arms around Maya and buried her face in her neck. They stayed like that for a long time. No words, no defenses, just breath and skin and closeness. That night, Celine didn't talk about war or strategy or enemies. She lay beside Maya in bed, quietly watching her breathe, fingers tracing the line of her jaw like she was trying to memorize something fragile. "You make me want to build something I don't have to protect with blood," she whispered. "You already have." Maya turned to her. "You just don't see it yet." The next morning, Celine did something unexpected. She turned off her phone. She canceled her meetings and she said, "Let's disappear for a while." Maya blinked. "Disappear? Just us? No press, no business, no legacy to manage. Where would we go?" "Anywhere you want." They left that night. A private jet, no entourage, no headlines, just a flight plan and each other. They landed in a quiet coastal village on the southern edge of Italy. Somewhere Maya had once mentioned in passing. Celine remembered the air smelled like salt and old stone. The sea was endless. The sun warmer than anything they'd felt in weeks. Celine rented a house on a cliff with windows that opened the wind and rooms filled with nothing but soft light and the sound of waves. For the first time, they stopped running. They cooked badly, laughed freely, walked barefoot through narrow streets, and kissed like the world wasn't watching. Because this time it wasn't. One afternoon, as they sat on the beach, Maya resting her head in Celine's lap, watching the tide roll in, she whispered, "Do you ever think about the night we met?" Celine laughed softly. "You mean the wrong table? I'm not so sure it is wrong anymore." "No," Celine said, brushing a thumb over her cheek. "It was exactly where you were supposed to be. Do you regret it? Falling for you?" "No. Everything that came with it." Celine was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "It nearly broke me, but I'd go through every second of it again as long as you're still here at the end." Maya blinked back the tears. "I am, and I'm not letting you go." Days passed. Then a week, no headlines, no threats, just healing, just love. One morning, Maya woke to find Celine sitting on the terrace, a notebook in her lap, pen tapping against her lips. "What are you writing?" Maya asked, still sleep-warm and tangled in a sheet. Celine looked up, startled. "A resignation letter." Maya's breath caught. "What?" "I'm stepping down as CEO. Celine, I've spent my whole life building a world that never felt like mine. It was built to prove something to people I don't even respect. But I don't need it anymore. I don't want it. Not if it means losing myself." "And what do you want instead?" Celine stood, walked over, cooped Maya's face in her hands. "You, a life that's mine, a love that doesn't come with blood in the margins. I want to live really live with you." Maya kissed her breathless. "Then let's do it." That afternoon, Celine sent the letter. She didn't ask for approval. She didn't wait for applause. She just let go. And the weight that fell off her shoulders was so heavy. Maya could feel it even in the kiss that followed. That night, under a sky full of stars and salt and the sound of waves hitting stone, Celine turned to Maya and said, "You didn't just change my life. You gave me one." Maya kissed her like it was a promise because it was. The war was over. The pain was healing, and all that was left was love. They stayed in Italy longer than planned. Days blurred into nights, weeks folded softly into each other like pages of a favorite book. Worn, loved, reread over and over. There was no schedule, no pressure, only breath, skin, sun, laughter, and love. Deep, consuming, terrifyingly gentle love. Maya found herself falling again every single day. Every time Celine burnt the toast, but pretended she didn't. Every time they danced barefoot in the kitchen to old Italian love songs. Every time Celine stared at the ocean, like it was the first thing that had ever made her feel small. But most of all, Maya fell when Celine finally let go of control. The woman who had once ruled a skyscraper now planted tomatoes in a cliffside garden and fought with bees over lavender. The woman who once wielded silence like a sword now told bad jokes and laughed until she cried. "You're different here," Maya said one night as they lay on a blanket stargazing. "So are you," Celine replied, fingers threading through hers. "I think we were always these people. We just didn't know how to be them." Maya turned to her. "What happens when we go back?" Celine looked at her quiet for a moment. "We don't." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" "I sold it." "Sold what?" "The townhouse? The penthouse, my holdings, everything I didn't want to carry anymore." "Celine, I'm not walking away from power. I'm just walking toward peace with you." "Are you sure?" "You are the only thing I was ever sure of." Maya kissed her like the stars had been waiting for it. The next morning, a letter arrived. No stamp, no return address, just a familiar calligraphy. Celine opened it slowly, heart still wary of the past. Inside a single sentence, "You survived me. Now go live like I never did." It was signed with a name they never expected. One of Navarro's inner circle. Maya read it over her shoulder. Goosebumps spreading. What does it mean? "It means even the ones who tried to destroy me understood in the end that I wasn't the villain. Just the one who refused to die quietly." "You didn't just survive," Maya whispered. "You changed. You made me want to." The days passed, but the story didn't fade. Rumors circulated. Whispers about the empire she left behind. About the waitress who stole her heart. People speculated, gossiped, wondered where Celine Arden had gone. But the truth was simpler than any headline. She had gone home. One evening, as golden light spilled over the sea, Celine called Maya outside. She stood barefoot in the garden, hair pulled back, dress fluttering in the breeze. Maya smiled. "What?" "Come here." Maya crossed the stones barefoot, curious. Celine took her hands and then dropped to one knee. Celine, let me finish. Maya's breath caught. Celine looked up at her, eyes bright, voice steady. I have built unbroken empires. I have survived war, betrayal, and love that never loved me back. But you, Maya Carter, you walked into my world by accident and somehow became the only thing in it that ever felt like truth. I don't want a legacy without you in it. I don't want a life I have to defend alone. I want to choose you every day over and over. Will you marry me? Maya didn't cry. She sobbed. And then she dropped to her knees too, kissed Celine with everything she had and whispered, yes, God, yes. The ring was simple, classic silver band, a stone like the sea. It's beautiful, Maya whispered. It's you. They stayed on their knees, laughing through tears, foreheads pressed together, hearts loud and full. The wedding wasn't grand. It was barefoot on a beach with wind in their hair and promises in their eyes. Jules flew out to officiate, cried the entire time. Dante stood off to the side, arms crossed, doing a poor job of hiding his own tears. No cameras, no headlines, no fortune, just vows breathed under a setting sun, two souls who'd bled their way to peace. I do, Celine said, voice unwavering. I always will, Maya answered. When they kissed, the world didn't erupt, it exhaled. Later, after the champagne was finished and guests had danced barefoot in the sand, Maya and Celine wandered the shoreline alone. Remember the blind date? Maya teased. You mean the wrong table? Yeah. Turned out it was the right table all along, Celine murmured. You just didn't know you were meeting your future wife. And you didn't know you were about to fall hopelessly in love with a barista who owns 5 hoodies and cries at commercials. Best surprise of my life. Maya stopped, toes sinking into the wet sand. Are you happy? Celine turned, eyes bright. I don't think I understood that word until you. Hand in hand, they stood as the waves curled over their feet. In that moment, there was no past, no war, no blood, only the hush of the sea, the warmth of love, and the shared look of two women who chose each other through everything and would keep choosing each other, forever. If you enjoyed this and want to support the channel in a special way, tap the thanks button below, the one with the heart and $sign. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution that helps me keep creating videos for you.